good morning, everyone. Welcome to our 59th Coffee with Commissioner event. It's Wednesday morning, and there's one heck of a lot of things going on in the county. So without further ado, we're going to get this thing started. Appreciate everyone getting up early with us this week. And we have some special guests with us this morning, our regular usuals. County Administrator Janice Gilley, good morning, welcome. Emergency Manager, Public Safety Director Eric Gilmore is here this morning. And then our very special guest this morning, who's also joined us, is Mr. Michael Kimbrell. He is the co-founder of Satoshi Forest, and he is the executive, the director of the Alfred Washburn Center, and he's an advocate for homeless in the community. And it's homelessness, and the issue of homelessness and panhandling has been an issue that's been brought to my attention multiple times by constituents. As a matter of fact, a couple of months back, at the request of a constituent, we had a discussion about it with our attorney. It's a very intricate matter. It's an issue. So I look forward to having a good conversation with Michael this morning and fleshing out some of these issues. So we're gonna have a great meeting. Without further ado, though, we always like to give our county administrator an opportunity to give us an update, and I'm looking forward to it. There's a significant bill in Congress that it looks like it's going to be passed today. A lot of us thought it was too big. A lot of conservatives thought it was a little too much and not targeted enough. But be that as it may, we live in a democracy, and it looks like it's passing today. So how does that impact us, Janice? Does it look like we might get a significant amount of money from that? Good morning.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good morning. Thanks for having us again. I would just say that, like you, it can be concerning about the size of the legislation and the package, because there are some concerns about our ability as a country to be able to repay it in the future. However, it is coming. And so we're trying to have a plan to be able to manage those funds. And so for Escambia County, our portion of the funds is $62.3 million. And the way that will be distributed, it appears we would get about 50% in the next couple of months. And then no earlier than 12 months from the time that we get the first 50%, we would get potentially another 50%. And it can be utilized on any program, any government program that is other than lobbying. That's one thing. So you can actually use it for water, sewer. For us, one of the things that I think we're interested in is probably the rural broadband backbone. Walton County has theirs coming online. I'll send you an article about that. But anyway, those funds can be utilized for almost, like I said, any government function that we would consider. You can also continue to provide households and businesses grants if you need to. And so right now we're just going to be working on a plan. The city of Pensacola will get theirs based on a capitation rate based on their CDBG funds. So there's 415 cities in the state of Florida that are also getting funds. So this time ours is coming directly from Treasury, and we will not. It doesn't include the city in our funds this time. So we're getting double the money in our community that we did, the 57.5 million that we got last time.
No, Janice, this to me is an incredibly important story. I know we had 57 million or thereabouts in CARES Act money, and we were able to really offset some of our general fund. Of course, we got hit with Hurricane Sally and a lot of unexpected hauling costs, but I heard you say we could use it for any governmental purpose other than lobbying. Does that mean we could use it to offset our costs in public safety or personnel costs, or does it have to be fixed assets purchased?
Quite frankly, now we're still waiting on guidance from Treasury because these funds are coming directly from Treasury. But when you look at the guidance that we've been given over the past week or two, and then there was a seminar again yesterday that is reiterating that continued mantra, it does appear that it absolutely could help us with offsetting any of our expenses in public safety. And they also even provide what they call premium pay, which is an opportunity to support like EMS, EMT, I would say also our corrections medical staff, folks that have had, first responders that have had direct contact with patients or citizens that may have had COVID. So there are some, I hate to say it this way, but the bar is not that high in terms of determining so far what you could utilize the funds for.
Wow. That's tremendous good news. I mean, I don't think the bill is responsible. I think in the long run, the amount of money we're printing and the amount of debt we're taking, I mean, we're just writing debt out of thin air. We're going to be over 30 trillion before. At some point, just speaking for myself, I do believe at the national level, both parties are guilty, right? It's not just the Democrat or Republican, and both parties are equally guilty of spending spree, but this will benefit the community. And there's a lot of public safety need. There's a lot of infrastructure need. So this is actually very good news for Escambia County citizens. And so I'm going to put you on the spot here, Janice. Are we going to do another round of direct assistance to our citizens? What's your opinion on that?
Well, so I would say this based on the way we did it last time. I think that if the board is inclined, I would say that I would hope that you would all consider a more open process for the citizenry, kind of like some of the other, because I think that, proof of residence in our community and things like that, I would just put as few barriers as possible on it. Because I do think that a lot of our residents have had increases due to COVID, whether it be electricity bills at home, or because, like last year I had 6 college students coming and going for 10 months. Obviously my food bills, while I was also paying apartments in college towns, by the way, that nobody was in. But I think every family has had some type of increase due to COVID, because if their kids were at home, there was more food, there was more utilities, there were a lot of expenses that folks incurred at home. So I would hope that if the board does consider another round, that they would consider it to be much more broad and general and open. It may not, certainly I would not recommend the large amount that we did for the folks that were under 45,000 a year, because I think that this would be more of just an opportunity to help folks make up those differences in some of those expenses.
Right. And one of the things that we have to point out too is aside from the 60 some odd million that this is going to give us directly, the bill does incorporate an extension of unemployment benefits through September and of $3 per week. So, that's just something to consider when we decide whether or not we want to give direct aid again. I have a question from Online Watcher, and this is a very good question. I think we do this, and I think we put it on our site, but do we have like a one pager that lists, the buckets of where the first 57 million went, that we could put?
Yeah. We have a one pager. We can make sure that we get that out there.
Okay. Yeah. Because obviously the majority of it went to our citizens. Some of it went to offset our general fund, some of our general fund where we were able to do it, which makes good sense from a government budgeting perspective. The other issue that, the other issue, we've got a late person joining. They're asking where the money came from and what is it called? Is it the American Recovery Plan? Is that what it is?
I keep saying, it's the American Rescue Plan.
American Rescue Plan. And this is federal legislation. And give that grand total again for our listeners who are just joining.
So for Escambia County, our allotment, as it is currently suggested, is about $62.3 million. And so we would get 50% now, 50% no earlier than 12 months after the first 50%. And it does not expire until December of 2024. Whereas we have all these other crunches to get through. I do want to mention this other thing, and I know that you know this because we talk about it frequently, but we submitted to FEMA COVID expenses, $330,000 last July, and we have not gotten one penny. On top of that, we've had another, we have projected approximately $156 million in expenses related to Sally, and we've not gotten a penny, back. And we already had some category A and category B expenses for debris hauling, land clearing, stuff like that. So, we are trying our best to balance all of this without having a deficit in our budget. So, we're not like every other community. There are some communities that they're going to get this 60 million or 40 million or, 30 million, whatever. And they didn't have a natural disaster that they're having to deal with.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah. So I just mentioned that because we've had a lot of expenditures and there's a lot of hope for return on those expenditures. We just haven't received them yet. And so I'm really disappointed about the COVID last year, because the COVID FEMA request, because we were specifically told to make those claims to FEMA because they were on an expedited 12-week payment plan.
And we still haven't got it.
No, sir. No, sir.
Well,
and now
we need to, I think what we need to do is ask Congressman Gates for his assistance, and Senator Rubio and Senator Scott. Senator Scott has an office right here. We need to really support them because they can apply some pressure and levers perhaps for us to help us. But that is inexcusable. But in the scheme of things, it's a lot of money, but it's a small amount in the scheme of things, 330,000. But still.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you add that on top of, so that's from last summer, then we have all of our other expenses that we're putting in for Sally. It just makes you nervous because it's still the same organization that's supposed to be repaying you. That's Absolutely. Where my concern comes from. They've already reviewed our documents. They've already said they're just waiting for approval, but yet they haven't written the check. And now the entire country, every time they add a new responsibility to FEMA, it makes me nervous because that's a new responsibility on top of, the responsibilities and the commitments they've already made to us as a community. And that just seems to me to put us a little bit farther down the line, which makes me, very concerned. So I just mentioned.
Yeah. And the other thing to think about is if they're going to send us 62.3 million, knowing that they owe us 156 from stuff we've already done, they're going to get this money out quick because politically they want to score points. See how quick we did this. And they'll tell counties like Escambia County, well, don't worry. Look, we just gave you an influx of this money. We'll get you on your other. We want to get both, right? We don't want to wait.
Well, I mean, yes, we do. I did want to mention one other thing, if you don't mind. It's a different topic, but we had a situation yesterday with what I would say was an uncontrolled, or it was a controlled burn that got out of hand.
On Blue Angel.
So it's that, remember about this time last year, we were starting to have, potential wildfires. And so we are putting out that graphic again from the Forestry Service about, make sure that you're 25 feet from your house before you do a fire. Make sure you're 25 feet from any woodlands, 150 feet from any other occupied buildings, and on and on, 50 feet from the roadway, but also make sure you have a permit. As we talked about yesterday, they did have a permit, but it did get out of hand. And I'm sure Eric can provide more details on that, but just, please always monitor any kind of burning. We just don't want to have any wildfires like we did last year.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Amen. And that was a state controlled burn, right? Eric, we didn't have any part of that, did we? That was the state, right?
That is correct. That is a state controlled burn. Or it was a contractor that was permitted through the state.
And did they lose control of that one? Is that what happened on Blue Angel, or was that?
It was. So the contractor had a permit. They had everything. They had their setbacks met, and the contractor, the fire got out. So yes, the contractor's the one that put the heavy equipment on scene yesterday and did a lot of preventative measures or keep it from spreading. Our fire units did show up and just make sure containment was achieved. So,
and it was only 3 acres, wasn't it?
It was 3 acres. It was 3 acres, but it was it's 3 acres in a wetland area where we can't put heavy equipment. We can't put trucks and personnel through. So then it becomes a problem. So.
Yeah, so even something that small can get out of hand. That was my
No, it sure can. Mm-hmm. And that's a great illustration. So if you're having your backyard burn pit, if 3 acres can go out of control and close the roadway down, then your little burn pit in your backyard could do the same thing. So that's good messaging out there. Obviously they did get it put out, and but our alarm systems did go off on the base, saying that we could not go out the back gate. We could not access Blue Angel Parkway. So that was a deal. Thanks for bringing that up. I want to talk quickly about the bridge, and then we're going to get to Michael Kimbrell. Michael, thanks for your patience. We always do this. We get a little county update, and then we're going to bring Michael Kimbrell in. We're going to talk about homeless issues and panhandling. But let's talk about the Pensacola, the bridge being out, the 3 Mile Bridge. Obviously, last week we voted to get some attorneys engaged. Is there any updates in particular to our fishing bridge, which that one should be a no-brainer? Is there any updates you can give us, Janice, on that?
Yeah. So what we've done is our folks, our risk manager has been working directly with the firm that is handling the insurance company that's handling the fishing pier in particular. So we've been able to provide them, I think as Mark told you all, we've been very transparent with them. We've been very open and provided them every bit of documentation that they've requested. And we've also been very clear to them that, that our staff was going to have to, probably pursue legal action because we didn't want to let the clock run out on the time frame that we have to notify the courts that there may be legal action on our side. And so we've been very open, like I said, with them, and told them we really would prefer to work this out from the insurance perspective than have to work it out in court. And they understand that and they agree. So the group that our folks are working with are out of New Orleans with the insurance, the lawyers with the insurance firm. I know that our county attorney is working with the local attorneys, and they were able to do a carve out of what you all passed, so that if we're able to be successful with the insurance company and their legal firm, we'll, we won't have to pay the retainer or the fees from the other. But, we've been able to provide them what the cost of the facility, the fishing pier is, what the construction cost, the reconstruction cost, the demolition, and I'm trying to think, we also provided them a pretty detailed document with eyewitness accounts and photos during the storm of the exact barges that were hitting it and the barges that blew through it. So we have a pretty, I feel like if you know maritime law, we have definite standing and we have definite damage, 100%, and it's all documented. But as you know, large corporations, sometimes there's a game in terms of clocks and times and, all that. And so, and a big corporation also has a lot of levels in which to go through for approval. And, so as, I just hope that we're successful. I don't see how we wouldn't be successful in getting compensation for the fishing pier, because it's absolutely demonstrated what happened, how it happened, and we even have the timing of when it happened. So.
We are all rooting for FDOT to get this project completed, get the 3 Mile Bridge open. I was one of the early skeptics, thought there was no way they were going to get it done in March. I even said so. I did a blog post about it, but now they're saying by Memorial Day. Is that for? You have your sources in Tallahassee. For real? Or are we going to find another piling that's moving? I mean, is that a for real deal, or are they going to move the goalposts on us again? And frankly, I blame this on FDOT. Everyone likes to say, well, scam. The project manager owns it, right? I'm tired of, anyway, I don't want my blood pressure to go up, but is that a real date, or is this going to be a year-long evolution?
So I would say this is a factual statement. We don't know what we don't know. And that's what happened the other day. One of the trophies budged, right? Whenever they picked up, the span to replace the span. Yeah. So the trophy budged. It was a trophy that was cleared, that had previously been cleared.
By an engineer.
By
an engineer when they did their assessment?
Yes, by engineers and inspection. And so that's what I mean by we don't know what we don't know. And I trust that they didn't know it either. And so I think this caught them as much of a surprise as it did anyone that was working on the project. I don't think they knew. And then, we're not going to tell anybody. And now it happened. That's the part that I think is a little bit concerning, is they don't know what they don't know. And so as they continue to replace and, put some of the spans back or move them around or whatever, they're going to have to be paying really close attention. Now, I think that they were fortunate that they had, that piece. They had one extra of those pieces to be able to put back in place. But, I don't know that they know everything still about.
Well, I really feel bad for our businesses, out on the beach. I feel bad for our downtown businesses. Obviously we don't represent Gulf Breeze, but we feel they're part of our community and they're getting crushed downtown. McDonald's is closed, I've been told. I think, so a lot of those businesses are really hurting, and they were really anxious to get that bridge open. But, I see out in 9 Mile Road, the project, out in Beulah from exit 5 out to Beulah Middle School. And, I just don't see FDOT putting any kind of pressure to get that. I mean, it's looking like it'll be 24 months late, and I guess we're supposed to accept that, and that's just the way it is. Meanwhile, the Publix turned from a forest; it's about to open in less than 12 months, but we can't finish paving two lane blacktop. We can't finish it. We just can't finish it. And of course, FDOT, I don't. Do we have any idea when they're ever going to finish that? I'm getting constituents that are mad at me again, and I always like to point this out. That 9 Mile Road project is a state project. That's not a county project. And it's just been managed horribly. And again, the project manager is responsible. I mean, these contractors are going to change order. They're going to get delays, contract days. That's the game they play. They're going to run until they get tackled. But at some point, Janice, isn't this nuts? Don't they have to own this? How come I get beat up every time I say that?
Well, you shouldn't get beat up. You shouldn't get beat up.
I get beat up. I get beat up from insiders in the deep state saying, you can't blame FDOT. Yes, I can. This thing's 24 months past due, bright sunny days, no one's working. Who? I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts, Janice? I'm putting you on the spot a little bit.
Yeah. Well, so
for a landing.
Yeah, and I don't know if they're geological. I don't understand what the issues are with the 9 Mile Road project because I mean there are also issues. So there are other projects that have started and already finished in the amount of time that this project has started and finished.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I know it was a project that was, I think, expedited, right? Moved up on the TPO list and things like that, like 5 or 6, 7 years ago, because we needed to expedite it because of Navy Federal out there. I honestly have never heard exactly why it's taking so long. I really don't.
Well,
and that's why I wonder if it's geological.
And it's not fair. It's not fair for me to put that on you, but it just seems to me that when you don't see anyone working on bright sunny days, and, I'm told that, just be patient and these projects long. And I see the same subcontractors going out doing other work, other jobs. It's just somewhat frustrating for the citizens I represent out there who are dealing with that 24-month delay in this project. Again, they see the private sector go out there and put a Publix up like that. No delays there. Those guys are working Saturday, Sunday, rainy days. They're out there with raincoats. They look like the Gorton's fishermen. They're getting it done. Our state project, bright sunny days, no one out there working. Anyway, that's enough.
I did want to mention one positive thing is that we are working really hard to try and get the ferry up and going.
Oh yeah, good.
Yes, the ferry landing up and going in conjunction with the city. Our team is working on it to try and make sure. The other thing that we're really, really hoping for that we may need to ask the citizen support on is to try and we want to ask FDOT to help us subsidize the ferry in the sense of maybe do month passes for employees. It is expensive. I think it's like $13,000 a day to operate the ferry, which is a lot. I know. But on the other hand,
Janice, let me stop you there though. Didn't we test for demand and didn't we find that there was not a demand? I mean, didn't we put the buses out? We only had like 12 people riding the bus. I mean, are we going to do it? Because Gulf Breeze doesn't even have a dock, so far as I know. I mean, if they built their dock, is that really something that's going to happen?
This is the thing. I think they tested the demand for like a 3 to 4 month window. I also think that, to be totally honest, to ride a bus for 45 or 50 minutes is a little different than maybe riding a ferry for 25 to 30 minutes from the Shoreline Park and around. So I think it is two different experiences. Yeah. I also think that taking a bus route and then extrapolating that to say that means there's no demand for a ferry, I don't know. I think that's a little bit of a stretch. Anyway, because I think that's what they did. They did a test on the bus, and no, there hasn't been a large ridership. I know this much. Senator Broxson may be the person that's ridden it the most that's been on there. Yeah, he's ridden it a lot. He gets on.
But here's the thing though. So the ferry goes to Gulf Breeze or goes from Gulf Breeze to Pensacola, but no one's got their cars. We're not going to bring a ferry in that has cars like you see on the West Coast, right? I mean,
correct.
So you got to.
We'll still have to have a trolley system for downtown. I mean, so is
that going to work?
A lot of people do this around the country in the Northwest and the Northeast. They park a car, and actually our friends down in around Sarasota and those areas that live on those little barrier islands, they have a ferry. They take a golf cart from the island to the ferry, then they leave their car on the mainland. So that's not an uncommon, experience.
Well, we'll see what happens with that. I think by the time it's all set up and Gulf Breeze gets their pier, hopefully the 3 Mile Bridge will be done. And maybe someone somewhere will ask the common sense question that I've asked from the beginning. Instead of doing this the way they did it, why did they not install metal grates like we did after Ivan and at least get traffic flowing on the span that was damaged, and then shift all effort to the other side, build that completely to specs, then open that up and come back and fix it? I think we would have got traffic flowing much sooner. I just don't understand why we didn't do it the intelligent way. Has anyone asked that question? I mean,
yeah. And as a matter of fact, the other day they were talking about they've looked at that again. I think part of the issue is the size of the spans. I think that was part of it. There may not necessarily already be, you know what I'm saying, because of the distance between the trophies. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that was part of the issue when they mentioned it the other day.
Well, they did it over the Pensacola Bay Bridge right after Ivan. They had it up and running 17 days later, and that was a lifesaver, and that was intelligent the way they did that. This, I don't think it's been managed well. But anyway, hey, look, I'm just a county commissioner. That's all. With questions, let's talk COVID quick. Then we're going to get Michael in here. We're going to talk about panhandling and homelessness, and we appreciate his patience. We've done 175,000, Eric, 175,697 tests. This is from our dashboard at myescambia.com. We've got 34,219 cases identified. We've got 33,181 recovered. That's an important stat. So 34,000 cases, 33,000 recovered. Vaccinations, this is huge. Almost 48,000 citizens have been vaccinated in Escambia County. That's fantastic. 47,965. Sadly, we have had 717 deaths, but our hospitalizations are going down. Our positivity rates down. Eric, to what do you attribute all that? Is that our vaccinations or our masks or all of the above? What do you think is leading to those numbers?
I think it's a culmination of all the above. People have, taken the mask seriousness and social distancing and doing what they're supposed to be doing. On top of that, we first thought that the vaccine wasn't going to be well received or get as many as we have, but we found out as soon as, supply and demand, supply was low, demand was high. Now we're starting to see for that demographic that the governor's opened up that the supply is starting to get there and demand starting to shrink a little bit. But the governor did open up that anybody 60 and older starting next Monday will be available to get the vaccine. The hospitals have been doing a great job about identifying comorbidities and trying to get those people in under the age of 65. And right now we're splitting the community between the school district. So the governor's directive is K through 12 employees, school district employees 50 and older. But the federal directive is any school district employee. And so our community health partners, Community Health of Northwest Florida, they're receiving federal allocations, which allows them to vaccinate any school board employee, which is great. Go do, and then it hamstrings our state partners, our partners with the state vaccine to get to 50 and older. But I think our numbers are looking better and things are improving because of the vaccine that's getting out there, everybody doing what they're supposed to be doing, social distancing and taking it serious and masking up. So keep doing what you're doing. Vaccine is going to roll more prominently and we're going to get it out more in the public. So I appreciate everybody doing what they're supposed to be doing.
And some folks have asked me, do we have now the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, the single dose shot here in Escambia?
We have it. It's just not being administered yet. So this week we did receive it. The state was going to roll out this big, nice game plan where they was going to hit the school district up for the weekend. But lo and behold, Sacred Heart, Community Health Northwest Florida, we've already taken care of our school district, and we're hoping that we're past that point. So we're actually looking at redirecting that Johnson & Johnson to do like a megapod. We're going to be walking through the Bay Center today to see if we can set this up and establish it as a megapod. But Department of Health did receive 2,900 doses of Johnson & Johnson this week that they was holding the school district. But we're going to look at reallocating that and doing something because it's a one shot, right? So it's one and done. We don't have to worry about a second dose series with that. So we're looking at doing a megapod with that so we can just stick an arm and let you go. So.
Well, I got to tell you, I've been out to the Brownsville Community Center. I've directed people there. You and Tom from Community Health Northwest. I just think the folks that I've spoken with, in fact, 2 of my employees that work for me out at the base have both now been vaccinated. They fell under one of the exemptions. And everyone to a person has just been extremely impressed with the coordination, the county, the National Guard, the state. I know initially the rollout was kind of choppy, but once you get to a place like our Brownsville Community Center or one of the setup pods that Community Health has done, everyone is really, really speaking highly of it. So I just want to congratulate you, Eric, for your coordination of that. Janice, I mean, it's rare that a lot of people saying the same thing. So it's great to hear the positive feedback. Because for every one of those, I get complaints about 9 Mile Road, right? And congratulations on that. Well, Michael Kimbrell, you have been very patient this morning. I'm very, very happy to see you here. Oh, it looks like your screen's frozen. Say hi or something. Are you still with us, Michael? Uh-oh. Are you there? Can you hear me? Up, you're muted.
Yeah, I just got back. So
fantastic.
Sorry about that. Outstanding.
Well, without further ado, Michael Kimbrell has joined us. Michael is the co-founder of the Satoshi Forest, and he is the director of the Alfred Washburn Center in both locations, provide assistance and services to folks who are homeless. And so, Michael, thank you for being here this morning. Homelessness is an issue that comes up frequently from constituents, a lot of different angles of it, panhandling. Some folks consider it a big nuisance. Recently, we had an encampment set up under I-110. I had folks bring it to my attention, and even though it's not my district. So I'm glad that you're here. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get involved in this work?
So I guess right at about a decade ago, I was an upholsterer here in Pensacola, a craftsman, and wanted to give back to our community. So a group of friends and I started doing a hot meal once a week in a park. And from talking with the people that came to eat our meals, they just told us horrible stories about how little services there are in our community. And I felt certain that couldn't be true. And so I've started investigating and found that in a lot of cases, their stories were downplaying how bad it was. And
wow,
kind of got obsessed. And, 10 years later, considered one of the, I guess, foremost experts in homelessness in our area. So.
Well, about 10 years ago, when I was on the school board, we had meetings of the school board where we had citizens, parents from the Montclair community that would come to the school board and they would complain about homeless encampment. And, that's when I first heard about Satoshi Forest. And, I always thought it was somewhat odd that folks would, complain about folks that were living in tents and just trying to survive and exist. And that folks, how did that dynamic in that with the Satoshi Forest and the neighborhood play out? Did you guys ever come to, I know we brought out dumpsters. I mean, how did that whole thing play out?
Yeah. So I guess I could say if I were to do it all over again, I would probably have done it differently. I think we went into it very naive in the sense that, we thought we were going to get, a key to the city or letters of commendation for the work that we were doing. And instead we really upset a lot of people in the neighborhood. And so we were short-sighted in that sense. But over the years of us being there, I think we have turned the story around. So I think when we first started, there was a lot of fear mongering that was happening, and fear of like who we were going to put out there, and what would this look like. And over the years, our neighbors have come out and talked to the people that we've had reside out there, and found that they're regular everyday people. They're citizens of Pensacola that have fallen on hard times and need some assistance. And so I think a lot of the people that were against us have turned to really like what we're doing, and so we've become a really good working model of what we could do in our community.
I remember one of the interesting side notes is that part of the money for founding this, if I remember correctly, maybe you can help me with this, was going to be this, at the time, brand new thing called Bitcoin. Tell me how Bitcoin played into Satoshi Forest.
Satoshi Forest is even named after the founder of Bitcoin, Satoshi Nakamoto.
Right.
It wouldn't have been possible without the Bitcoin community. So the way that started was my partner Jason was in a chat room and everyone was arguing, because Bitcoin had just hit $50 a coin. And
yeah, you know what it's worth now, right? You know what it's worth now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yes I do. And so people were arguing as to whether it was really worth $50. And Jason came on the chat room and said, if you give me a Bitcoin, we can feed 40 people. And someone gave him a Bitcoin. He went out and fed 40 people, put the gentleman's name or their handle on the sack lunches. So the next day when he posted, they saw their money spent in 24 hours. And by the end of the day, I believe he had 10 Bitcoin. Wow. And realized he needed some help. And so he tapped me, and I was like, sure, I'll use this monopoly money to, help the poor in our community. And, in less than a year, we were buying property with this, with Bitcoin. And so it's been essential in the work that we do.
Well, I will say at this point, and if had you have purchased about $5,000 worth of that stock when it came out around that time, I think it went public shortly thereafter, it would be worth 5 million now. So hopefully one of your guys or someone who knew about it back then bought into it. I know there's been a lot of millionaires made, because I think it's trading now at like $50,000 a share or something ridiculous. It's crazy. But
yeah, I know yesterday it hit 55. So yeah.
Wow. I wish I had a time machine, but anyway, what would it matter? I'd be a lottery winner if I had a time machine. Let me ask you some questions.
Well, us too. Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, us too. The reason that we got the Bitcoin was because we spent it immediately. And so, all these people have hit us up over the years like, oh, I bet y'all are, sitting on a bunch of money. And like, no, we spent it as soon as we got it. So
Wow. Well, that's an interesting story, especially given how successful Bitcoin and now all the cryptocurrency is. Let me ask you just one big question, because, time always, I love the fact that we're going to talk about this, but can homelessness be cured? What's your opinion on that? Is it something that needs to be cured? Can it be cured?
That's a really good question. So I don't think it can in the system that we currently live. I think the system that we currently live in causes homelessness. And so you can't fix the problem with what causes the problem.
Now, what do you mean by that? How does the way we live cause it? I don't understand that.
So we live in a capitalistic society. And so the number.
Oops.
Oh, we lost.
I really wanted to hear this answer.
Yeah, me too. Hey, big tech is listening. The minute he said capitalism, bang.
Yeah.
He got frozen out. Michael, we can't hear you, man.
There he is.
He's back.
Okay, you came back. You were frozen for a minute. I'm sorry. Answer that again. You were frozen.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So I don't think that capitalism can fix capitalism, I guess is the best way of, or the problems caused by capitalism. And so to have the haves, you have to have the have-nots. And it's impossible. There will never be enough money sent down to the have-nots by the haves to fix the have-nots, if that makes sense.
I mean, yeah, mathematically, I'd probably agree with you, sadly. But I think the have-nots here in America have it better than a lot of haves in 95% of the rest of the country. But I don't want to get off on a political
world. Yeah, exactly.
Rant. How big of a factor is substance abuse in the homeless community? It appears to me that that's a significant issue.
It is. So I think most statistics that I read, and from what I see, it's roughly about 40% of the population. And it breaks into a bunch of different demographics. So you have people with mental health that are self-medicating.
Yes.
You have people that were just having a party and didn't realize what addiction was like. I'm a recovered addict myself, and so it is a trap. It very much can be. You think you're just having a good time, and then next thing you know, you can't live without it or function normally without it. I think we see a lot of self-medicating because it's scary out here. And if you can't sleep at night, maybe a couple of beers can help you get some sleep. But you do that every night, you're eventually addicted. And then we see a lot of escapism. Like this world is so painful and hurtful. I just want to forget it. And so getting high is an avenue towards escape. I don't think it works, but it's one of the avenues people take.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's just a temporary fix. It's never going to solve the problem in the long range and long view. I'm aware.
I wanted to mention, I think another thing that that he is probably going to reference too is the lack of affordable housing is it's an absolute epidemic just nationally here. And there are some cities that absolutely, like a San Francisco, where you can't even really afford to live there anymore. I mean, even if you do have a significant income. So the lack of affordable housing is a huge issue too, because there may be people that are in that in-between phase between maybe they've lost their employment and they just need a little time to catch up. There's no place for them to go.
Right.
So right. That's it is a big part, that anyway, I will go.
Well, Go ahead, Mike.
I think we need to redefine what we mean by affordable housing too, because so take for example, the city of Pensacola has this initiative right now for I think it's 500 houses in 5 years.
5 years.
But when we look at what they're defining as affordable, it's a medium income of $40,000 a year, and so that's not even going to touch the demographic that I work with. And so I know that low income housing has a bad taste in everyone's mouth, but that's what we're talking about. We need some truly affordable housing.
Let me ask you this. One of my relatives, I ain't going to mention which one, but he lives out on the West Coast, and tends to be kind of the Democratic persuasion. So he and I have interesting conversations because I'm a red meat Republican. But he said we should take old Air Force bases or Navy bases or federal property that's been decommissioned and make like barracks style accommodations and ship the homeless people out there. And just that way they could be all together, get the services they need, get fed. It would eliminate. And I thought it was kind of a weird thing. This, of course, coming from someone on the left side of the spectrum. Would that work, Mike?
We'd have to be very careful not to make it look like an internment camp.
Yeah.
But there, I have heard some projects of that do seem to have some merit. For me, it always has to be voluntary. Right. Like if it became a mandatory thing, then I think it would be very unsuccessful.
Let me ask you this. A lot of folks are asking this morning on the Facebook feed, they're asking, how can the average citizen help? Are there Facebook pages where people can donate? What would you say to someone who's fortunate and maybe has a disposable income and wants to really get involved and help? How does the average person help your cause?
So that's a good question as well. So it depends. So for some people, volunteering helps. And so we have tons of different volunteer opportunities. From a financial standpoint, I always recommend let's sit down and look at how much money we have and find the best fiscally responsible ways of spending that money.
We lost you again, Michael. If you can hear us, we can't hear you. Okay.
While we're waiting for him to come back, one of the other things that we do know, there's a lot of research out there that talks about one of the ways to help folks come out of home. Oh, there he is. Okay.
Mike, are you back?
To come out of homelessness is if they've not escaped a violent and abusive relationship in their family, to try and find a way to get them back to their family. Support networks of a familial or a community base are absolutely the best way to help people out of homelessness. And there are numerous studies that have specifically talked about this.
Hey, Michael, you froze up. Thank you for that, Janice. You froze out for a minute there, so we missed what you were saying. Can you just repeat that last thought that you were making?
How people can help, yeah.
Yeah, how people can help.
Yeah, so it would just be either through volunteering or donations.
I want to ask you specifically about panhandlers. Now, I know that that there's a distinction between someone who's homeless, and that's not necessarily the guy that you see holding a sign at the street corner. In some instances, I know those are grifters. They turn around and they walk to their truck and then drive away to their house, but they're out trying to make a buck. I get it. Unfortunately, the perception is it ties homelessness and panhandling at the hip. And obviously you can tell when someone's really in need, based upon the condition, the way they look, et cetera, et cetera. But folks like me, I've given money in the past. I've attempted to give food, specifically on Cervantes Street, where the off-ramp from 110 goes to Cervantes. There was a gentleman about a couple of months ago who was walking up and down with a sign that said he needed help. First time I encountered him, he cussed at me, gave me the finger. We exchanged some words, let's put it that way, out the window as I drove by. The next day I came back, though, because I didn't feel good about the way I left it. And I brought a non-perishable lunch, a can of beans, can of Vienna sausages, bottled water, a box of candy. And I saw the guy. I had it in my truck. I was just going to keep it till I saw him again. Pulled over, rolled down the window, and I handed it to him. In one motion, he slung it over his shoulder, chucked it. So how do you help someone who says they need help but won't take food? What do you do for someone like that, Michael? How do I help someone like that who's just going to throw away the food I give them?
So that, to me, that sounds like a mental health issue. And I almost want to say I know who the individual is, and it's very much a mental health issue.
He was a younger guy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's difficult. Usually what I say to people, like to the panhandlers, is to talk to the person. And you can usually find out within a few minutes if it's someone that is trying to subsidize an addiction or if it's someone that truly needs help. Unfortunately, I'm one of those people that tethers the two together. So I think that most panhandlers are homeless. And even those that go back to their homes, in most cases, are very impoverished and do need some type of financial assistance. From my experience, it tends to be like they're paying an electricity bill or something to that effect. Because I've looked for the con artist. I used to hear rumors of the white van that drives around and drops off all these people, and then they pick them back up and pull their money together. And I've been trying to find those guys for 10 years and have not found them. I'm not saying
is that an urban legend? That's an urban legend that they drop them.
I think so.
Okay. Well,
I talk to people in our community all the time that swear they've seen it. So, I mean, I don't know if it's the Ouroboros effect or if it's, or the Mandela effect, sorry.
Mandela effect.
Yeah. Or if it's, I just have missed them, but for 10 years I've been looking for them. So I would say that it's probably an urban myth.
Well, let me ask you this, because this is an important question. Obviously, we're in government here. We try and provide services to our citizens is what we do. One of the things we can do is economize and be efficient and never recreate the wheel ourselves. I've had the benefit in my life being able to travel. I know that you have as well. What city in the United States of America is doing it right, in your opinion, Michael, because you live this, so that we can model and their best practices, and expend funds to help people? Everyone wants to help, but no one wants to feed someone's addiction. No one wants to see food thrown away. So is there a city or community in the country that you can name that in your opinion is doing it right and we could model?
Not one in particular comes to mind. I like a lot of the projects in the Pacific Northwest. We're starting to see a lot of tiny home communities form, and different, I guess, thinkings of outside the box, which is funny because, it's what we were trying to do 10 years ago is what we're now starting to see happening. So I like to think that we were a little bit ahead of our time. But I think every community is different. And I think far too often we look at other communities, take their ideas and try to implement it into our community, and it doesn't work too well because we haven't tweaked it to our community. And so for me, it's like I like some of the ideas, but then we need to examine how effective it would be in Pensacola or Escambia County. For example, I see over in California, they've built like a humongous, like one-stop shop kind of area, but I question how effective that would be here in Pensacola because we're so kind of spread out and we don't have a good public transit. So it'd be difficult for people on the outskirts of our county to make it into this hub. And so what I would see more effective in our community is almost like little substations all over our community that have maybe 10 to 15 beds in them that we could see a hot spot, open up a small substation, address the problem in that area. And then once it's gone, we could close it down. Whereas if you build a big facility, you need to maintain that facility. You can't just shut it down and move somewhere else because it's, in most cases, a multi-million-dollar facility.
In this community, obviously, this community is full of very generous people. That's why we have nonprofits that flourish and get tremendous donations yearly. And one of the nonprofits, and I donated some money to from my discretionary account, was run by my father. A lot of them are faith-based, which I think is great. Obviously, I know opinions can vary, but I know the faith-based community does a lot. And My Father's Vineyard purchased, they put together a group and they purchased a trailer that has showers, and they move it from place to place. And it was a community effort to fund it. A lot of really generous folks put money in. Is that the sort of initiative that people can independently do? And if they do, who is the one person coordinating it? It just seems like this is so stovepiped, and everyone's got their segment of it, but no one's really coordinating the strategy. Is there someone who's coordinating the overall strategy, Michael?
Theoretically. Theoretically, that would be our Continuum of Care. They are our lead organization in the area. I don't want to throw them under the bus here, but
sometimes when people say that, that's what they're doing.
Oh no, it's exactly what I'm about to do. I don't really have to say it.
Okay.
And so I see too often that so what a Continuum of Care, in my interpretation of their definition, is they're supposed to find the best performing agencies and get them the funding that they need, but they're also supposed to be our lead organization that kind of sets the game plan, for what's our agenda, and keep us all together with meetings. And while they do those things, I see a lot of times that when funding comes into the area, they open up a new position that they now do this new thing that might have been being done by another nonprofit in the community, and in some cases maybe even more fiscally responsible, like they were doing it with volunteers instead of paid personnel. But then the money stays in-house at our Continuum, and these volunteers get discouraged and then quit doing the work that they were doing free of charge before. And so it becomes very, very disheartening to see those kind of things happening. And so I see what has ended up happening is that we have the grassroots organizations that are very flexible, but they have no coordination. And then we have the nonprofit industrial complex, which is also almost works as a cool kids club, that it are the gatekeepers of our tax dollars, and they kind of play favorites, and it's unfortunate that it's that way, but from their point of view, I also see why would they take risks with some of these grassroots organizations when they already have these tried and true partnerships that they have. So, I mean, like I see their arguments, but it makes it difficult for the grassroots to get into the nonprofit world, but then it also stifles the work that we do because it's set up on competition. And this is something that needs to be set up on cooperation and not competition, but we're all gunning for the same monies. And if we're all gunning for the same monies, how do we communicate with one another? Because you might steal my ideas, and which for me, I don't mind. I just want to see the work get done. But for a nonprofit, they have to sustain. They have to maintain their company. And so they have to put the business first, and then the mission second. And you see a lot of times in the grassroots world, we put the mission first and our well-being second.
No, and you know what? That is a great assessment, and I don't disagree with you in generally speaking. I think there's some nonprofits that do it better than others, but you're absolutely correct. And we've all seen the stories about the out of control compensation for some of these firms, especially the ones that deal with wounded veterans, and it's obscene. But I know what you're talking about. I would say the thing that hamstrings, from my experience with it, in my wife running one of these nonprofits, is there's a tremendous amount of record keeping and reporting for these grants. And so if you're an organization that runs on a lot of grants, you're just completely overwhelmed with reporting requirements, and it becomes overwhelming. It really is. I'd like to see some reform in that side of the house, but you know, I don't know. I don't get to make those decisions. Just like I don't get to FDOT the smart way to fix a bridge.
Right, and that's why I call it the nonprofit industrial complex. Is they're trapped as well. Like they have to, the money tells them how they can spend it, and then they have to hire someone to prove they spent it the right way. It becomes extremely wasteful. I mean, the money gets stepped on 5 times before it actually gets to the mission.
And you're still right about that.
Yeah, and it's frustrating. I'm sure it's frustrating for them as well. In the nonprofit sector.
Man, I hate it. Every time I get into these great conversations, I run out of time. I cannot imagine on these shows that you see on TV where they only get 2 minutes per segment. Yeah. But Michael Kimbrell, I want to say thank you for what you do for our community. You're out working, you put your money where your mouth is, you put your time. It's all about time. Folks write a check or whatever, pay lip service, but when you're out there actually doing it, you certainly earn my respect. So thank you for coming on this morning. I'd love to have you and talk about these issues if you're available again. I would love to continue this conversation with you, and offline as well. I intend to talk to you about some ideas that I have. But
before you go, I just wanted to make sure that your viewers did understand the magnitude of what Mike's talking about. When we do the census, the contact census, we're looking at least 1,000 people that are absolutely, truly homeless.
That was a question. That was my last question, Janice. Yeah. How many people are we talking about in Escambia?
There's 3,000, we believe, in the population. Okay. 1,000 of those are the ones that Mike is talking about that may be in his forest, or maybe in another forest, or in some, some wooded area, or maybe in a park bench or under the interstate or whatever. That's about 1,000. Then we have that other 2,000, which are maybe living in their cars, or living in a hotel, or living in something that's not quote unquote a home. Maybe they're sleeping on someone's couch. So our number in Escambia County that we kind of think we can determine, and I know Eric could probably answer this a little bit better because Travis and his office is very actively engaged in the homeless community. We think it's about 3,000. When we went to Tallahassee and visited with them, they were telling us their number is about 90 that's actually on the street. Yes. So we truly do have an issue here in terms of just the number and the magnitude and the need. So I just didn't want us to leave without knowing that particular number. And maybe Mike has a different number, but I know that from the information that Eric and his team were able to get from the, the contact, it's about 3,000.
Yeah, no, that's about correct. It's the Haas Center did a study, and they came to 3,000 to 6,000. So, so that's about right. Yeah.
Yeah, Eric and I were using the number about 4,500, and so then the number we got was like you said, but it's between 3 and 6. So it's a disturbing number for our community.
One final question, and it comes from a listener. Do you think our community, and those are big numbers, Janice, and to me, and especially as compared to Tallahassee, which is a little smaller than Escambia County, but not much, maybe about 30,000 residents smaller. They're 270, 280, we're 315, 320. But for them to only have 90 and we've got 3,000 or 1,000 that are homeless, that's big. But Michael, final question, we'll leave it with kind of a lightning rod question. Are we spending enough? Are we spending enough compared to communities like Fort Walton Beach, Panama City? Or do you think we need to pull out the checkbooks and do more?
So that's kind of a loaded question. So yes, we do, but we need to be intelligent about how we spend the money. We very easily could spend millions of dollars, and once the money's gone with feel-good projects, still have the same problem. And so again, I think we need to see how much money we're talking about, put it on the table, and then sit down and find the best way to fiscally address this issue. I think it's one of the reasons I'm such a big proponent for campgrounds is, so for example, Shitoshi Forest, we house 15 to 20 people at a time on our property, and it costs us $12,000 a year. And so right at $1,000 a month, I'm housing, 20 people. Whereas I think we just put 3 people in a house for $1,300 a month, and so we're spending about the same amount of money to house 3 people in a house versus 20 people in tents. And so if we don't have a lot of money to spend, maybe we can, should be addressing it in a simpler fashion than trying to house everybody immediately. I think we can provide safe spaces immediately and then build that infrastructure as we go, instead of leaving people out in the cold while we figure out what we're going to do.
No, that's a great answer. I know it was a complex question. Well, like I said, we could have this conversation for another hour and I still wouldn't get all my questions answered. But again, my appreciation to our county administrator, very busy all the time. Janice, thanks for being here. Eric Gilmore, Public Safety Director, and just wearing a lot of hats these days. Thank you for all your hard work. Thanks for being here on these meetings. And Michael Kimbrell, again, I want to express my thanks to you for what you're doing in our community to help these folks. I think there's one thing, no matter which political side of the political spectrum you're on, everyone wants to help people. I want to help people. I want to do it intelligently. So I look forward to continuing this conversation offline and then in a subsequent coffee. But appreciate all you all being on the call this morning, and hope you all have a great rest of the week. Thanks for being here.